when we're starting out, I mean, especially when we're starting out learning art, and but even people who are further along, we tend to get it really complicated fast. There's so many choices. There's so many different colors. There's so many ideas we've been having in our head, and we tend to just put more and more and more and more stuff in the picture. And then, and this is the case for me, I tend to paint some of it out, and it gets so busy at a certain point, which can be frustrating. Then I have to paint stuff out, and I go back and forth and back and forth. But here's the thing. If you can remember that what makes something powerful, it doesn't have to be 7 or 8 things that are all competing. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 things competing. In fact, it can just be 2 things. 2 different things can be enough. And often it's amazing. So check this out. If I have a picture and I have a shape on here, and maybe I have a whole bunch of other shapes on here. And this is what, often we tend to do. This is kind of how we often start out. We just keep trying, adding things. I have all this white space. I better just fill it up. And we very quickly end up with a whole bunch of things happening. Now, we've got, these, and we've got these, and we've got these, and we've got these different colors. And often it can go, you get more and more and more and more and more. But if you just remember that you can reduce it down. If you look in all of this and say, well, I really like, this here or this, I can keep it really simple. Let me show you. So I'm going to paint out some of these things. And I'm going to end up with, my plan is to end up with just a couple things. So I'm going to get rid of this. Now it's still going to be there a little bit, but because you can see through the paint, but for all intents and purposes, it's not there. And so I really like this shape here a lot. So that was the one I chose. But if I take that and make it bigger, now I can really feel that, right? And as things go away, as all those other shapes have left, do you see how just even one thing is kind of like, this is really interesting to look at. I'm no longer really looking at these other things too much. You can't really see them because they're covered with white paint, but I mean, you can see them a little, but I'm trying to just make them so they're not there or as noticeable. Now, so now we've got this one thing that's pretty amazing. Now I can come in and I'll do one other thing, just one other thing, but this is what's important, that it's got to be different than what that is. So maybe it's just a line, right? I'm being real, this is really careful, it's red, it's not green, it's pretty different than this. Do you see how interesting this is right out of the gate? We don't need 1,000,000 things. We don't need 10 things. We don't need 5 things. We just need 2 things. And if they're different and we can see them, the picture goes a long way. That takes it really far. It becomes pretty interesting to look at. And sure, there's subtle things that are more in the background and quiet, which always adds richness to things. But just remember that. You only need 2 things. If they're different and we can see them, you're going to get pretty far along really, really fast.